Good morning, BookTube. This is Johnny. I am wearing my spring hat because I feel like I am in a spring mood. I don't know what that means. I'm never in the spring mood. But I thought, hey, I haven't worn my hat in a while. So I put it on, drinking a cup of coffee. It is 10:46 here in West Michigan. It is Sunday morning, May the 6th. And I was sitting here in the dining room. The house is quiet. And my wife went to church. And I was writing in my diary. I'm on page 349 for the year 2018. And before I turned on the camera to film, I was reading Introducing Medieval Biblical Interpretation, The Senses of Scripture in Premodern Exegesis. I'm really enjoying this book. It's a fun read. I also got out to look at today on the Christian Sabbath. John interpreted by early Christian and medieval commentators. The Church's Bible. I just got this a couple of weeks ago. I haven't got much into it because, like I mentioned last week, I'm kind of out of it. I don't know what it is. I get it's kind of like I'm standing waiting for an elevator that will never come down, that will never open its doors. And I think it's like I said, my mind gets tired, and so I don't read as much. I do read. I've always been a reader, always reading something. As you can see through my videos, I'm not one to read through books like some people hold up. I've read 100 books this month. I've read 50 this week. I've read 10 today, and they hold up comic books and illustrated novels and YA or something like that. They're considered a substantial work of literature. But hey, everybody's different. I mainly, like I said, I haven't been really in the mood, been reading. But like I said in one of my recent videos, that I've mainly been reading Night Walking: A Nocturnal History of London by Matthew Beaumont, and I'm really enjoying this. It's kind of like a literary kind of cultural history of night walking at night as written about, or how people viewed it in the medieval times, 16th, 17th, 18th century, 15th century. It's just very fascinating. Really enjoying it. And this morning, my wife and we went downtown to Reader's World Bookstore, and I saw that book that I've been eyeing, The History of the Fog in London, and I'm thinking I might buy that. But I almost bought it this morning, but I thought to myself, well, I gotta finish reading this. And while we're downtown, we got a New York Times. I already looked at the New York Times book review. I get this online. You can subscribe to the New York Times and get it sent to you by email. The New York Times book review. It's not. It's more of a condensed version, but it's a good source to find out about books that's coming out. So. But like again, I got the New York Times, and I'm not really in the mood to look through it. I looked at the New York Times book review. I didn't see anything that kind of struck me. I did see, I did watch a video this morning for one of my book subscribers, and it was interesting. She reviewed this book that's mentioned here. It's called The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. So it was kind of interesting that I heard a review about that book this morning, and there it's mentioned in the New York Times Book Review. I mainly came on here this morning to do a book haul. Yesterday, well, Friday night, we had Josephine, our granddaughter, or one of our granddaughters, over for a sleepover, and then the next day, our oldest son, Emily and Cora, came over, and Josephine is one of our oldest daughters, our oldest son's daughters, and they came over, and but before they came over, before Caleb and Emily and Cora came here, I took a break and I went to a local thrift store just a couple blocks from where we live, and I just want to show you the books that I got. I had gone there in a week, and it's only like 2 or 3 blocks from where we live. And these are the books that I found. I found Knowing God by J.I. Packer. On my study desk, I have a devotional flip-over calendar that has quotes from this book, Knowing God. Knowing God was one of the first Calvinistic books that I read. This came out, what year did this one come out? 1973. I became Reformed or Calvinistic about 1975, and this is one of the first books that I read, and it only cost 25 cents, and I always get a copy, and we give them away. And then I found a book called Baghdad Without a Map, Other Misadventures in Arabia by Tony Horwitz. I collect him. He's written several books. And I collect them. He's like, he has Confederates in the Attic, which is about the South. Blue Latitudes, which is about him sailing the same voyage as Captain Cook. And he has other ones, but I like travel memoirs, and so this is Baghdad Without a Map, Other Misadventures. So I got that. And then I found this old Edith Wharton hardback. This was published in 1923. And this is, I looked online yesterday, and this is one of a novella. There's 3 of them. It's called, well, you can buy them in the 4 novellas in a paperback. They're called Old New York, False Dawn, The Old Man, The Old Maid, The Spark, and New Year's Day. And this is New Year's Day. And I collect Edith Wharton. I found a biography of Edith Wharton. I have this already. This is by R.W.B. Lewis. This is a very famous biography of Edith Wharton. And I just bought this to give away. There's one of these already at the library used bookstore. There's already a copy of this, but it was only 50 cents. It's in perfect condition, so I bought it. And then I found this really interesting book, Literary Landscapes of the British Isles, a Narrative Atlas by David Dalches and John Flower. Yeah, it has, like it says in the table of contents, Chaucer's World, Shakespeare's London, Dr. Johnson's London, Charles Dickens' London, Virginia Woolf's London, the Lake Poets, the Romantic Poets Abroad, Bronte Country, Scotland in Literature, Dublin of Yeats and Joyce. And it's really interesting. It has It's in perfect condition. It has, you know, maps of the literary history. Just a nice little book, only 50 cents. And then I have this book already. This is by Pete Dexter, his famous novel, Paris Trout. I bought this because it's just in perfect condition. And it was published in 1988. And it's just... So I just bought it because my paper Trout edition is an old, small paperback. And then I bought this book on the parables of Jesus in the four Gospels. The parables, understanding the stories Jesus told. This is by Simon J. Kistemaker. Kistemaker was one of my professors in seminary. I took classes with him on, I think, on the parables. I can't remember other classes I took with him. Maybe on the four Gospels. I have to go back and look at my seminary notes. But he's a really good scholar. He just recently died last year, Simon Kistemaker. A really great Christian guy. And then I found this book, The World of the Vikings, by Richard Hall. It's just, it's one of those like table books, but it's just a nice book about Vikings, and so I got that. Then, of course, I found another copy of Middlemarch. As I told you, if I see any copy of Middlemarch, I just buy it, by George Eliot. And then I bought this book, and I found out that I already have this book in our library, The Forest for the Trees, An Editor's Advice to Writers, by Betsy, Lerner. This is a really interesting book. I bought it several years ago, and I forgot about it. But I'll take this to the book nook. And then I found a book by Emma Donahue, Frog Music. I collect her novels. She wrote the famous book, The Room, that was made into a movie. And so I got this. Looks really interesting. I like it. I've looked at her books, her novels, and they always look interesting. So that's what I found at a local thrift store, just around the corner. I got all this for $4.25. You can't go wrong for $4.25. And I hadn't gone there in a week. Usually I go at least once a week, because it's only around the corner. And Friday I volunteered at the library used bookstore, and I brought home for my free book a biography of Fanny Trollope, who was the mother of Anthony Trollope. This is Fanny Trollope, The Life and Adventures of a Clever Woman, by Pamela Neville-Sington. So this is a biography of Anthony Trollope's mother. And several years ago, I read a historical novel on Fanny Trollope, written by Edmund called Fanny. It says here in the back, in her 50s, Mrs. Frances Trollope became famous overnight for her book attacking the United States. And that book that she wrote was Domestic Manners of the Americans. Mrs. Frances Trollope became famous overnight for her book attacking the United States. 25 years later, she sharpens her pen for her most controversial work, the biography of her old friend and radical and feminist Fanny Wright. She recalls the 1820s when the young Fanny interrupted into Trollope's sleepy English village like a volcano, her red hair flying, her talk inflamed with utopian ideas. Before long, Wright convinced her to follow her to America, a journey of extreme perjury, penury, frontier hardships, and most satisfying central romance of Frances Trollope's life. Fanny of fiction is a wonderful new departure from Edmund White, a quirky, dazzling story with two extraordinary 19th century women in a vibrant, questioning exploration of the nature of idealism, the clay feet of heroes, and the illusionary power of the American dream. So yeah, I read this a couple years ago. I have a paperback and I have a hardback of this. So this is Fanny Trollope. So that's it here in my book world. This is a new week. I think I got a book coming in the mail this week, and tomorrow is a Monday. I go back and I volunteer at the library used bookstore, the Book Nook. I was there Friday and I didn't really see much, but you never know. Maybe something came over the weekend, and maybe I'll find something at thrift stores this week. But besides that, it's kind of quiet. Like I said, I've only been in the mood to read Night Walking, a Nocturnal History of London. This is really interesting, and that's about it here. So I'll sign off and put these books down on the lower level, write in my diary, read about medieval exegesis. I don't know what I'll do in the afternoon as far as reading. I have been looking at booktube videos, and writing in my diary. Not much else to say, so I'll sign off. Thank you for the encouraging words. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the new subscribers, and hope you're all doing well. Until next time, bye.